Welcome to yet another beautiful, beautiful conversation. Today, we're going to talk about how to create a life you don't want to take a vacation from. And I'm here saying, teach myself, do I have that? Do I want that? Of course I do. And I'm thinking by the time we're done, Ellen is going to tell me how I can do what I do and not need a break because I love my clients, but I also need a break at some point. That's what we're going to talk about today. My guest has a story of being in corporate, climbing all the ladders, getting to the top, looking down, and saying, this is not a view that I expected. I don't know what view she expected, but she climbed the corporate ladder to the last one of what she had dreamed, and she said, no way, this is not the view that I expected. So if you're achieving all of the things in your job and you're climbing the ladders and you feel empty or you feel exhausted or you feel burnt out or you feel like there has to be more to what you're doing, this is your conversation. I'm going to interview her about her life because like she's the masterpiece. She's walked this journey. So I'm going to interview her about that. So you can kind of see how she's taken the leap from that world of what success should look like and do more things and do and do and do and push and hustle and grind to the top into the place where she does less and achieves more, loves what she does, and doesn't need to take a break from that. I really can't wait for that part where I don't need to take a break. And we're going to go through her process of how can you start your own journey of living the hustle and grind culture and stepping more into ease and flow. We're going to be speaking to women for the most part. If you're a man and you're watching, maybe it will apply. I don't know. Ellen will tell us. But it's really, for the most part, the women who feel like they're on this hustle and grind. They're burnt out. They're exhausted. They just feel like they're not building based on like their capacity as a woman, as a mother, and all of those things. There's a way to build that will give you the ease and flow. There's a way to build that will burn you out because that traditionally was created, but it's like it's a man's thing. It's like that's how men build. We're stepping into the era where women show up and just lead as women without, all the rules that, we've been meant to or told that we have to follow. I could go on and go on and go on, but the more I keep talking, the more I may divert you from the main topic. So let's get the real expert for this stuff in the dough and kind of let's hear from the horse's mouth, shall we? Alan, welcome to the show. I am so honored you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's begin from what do you do? From all my rambling, what is it that you do?
So I work with people to help them identify what's really going to bring them joy. And so they can let go of operating based on expectations, based on what they think they need to be doing. So they can be more in the joy of what they want to create and create that life they don't need a vacation from.
So what's wrong with how we are creating today?
So mostly when I work with people, they're creating based on what I came to call the cage, right? We're creating based on the conditions we think that have to exist in our life. We are trying to fix the conditions in our life. We have this, when this, then that, when the kids have left home, then I'll do this. When I retire, then I'll do this. Most people create based on their circumstances. What can I create based on where I'm at rather than, well, what would I love truly to create? And then we think, well, we can't have what I would love. So I need to go about doing it this way first. So that's one thing, is like we're not creating based on what we love, we're creating based on the conditions. And then you add to that the A of cage, which is the assumptions we think we have, who we have to be. I need to be pleasing. I need to be good enough. I need to achieve to show that I'm good enough. I need to put other people's needs first. I need to, all of these assumptions we have about ourselves, and then add in a good dollop of guilt with that. I need to take care of my family first or my partner first. I need to take on more projects at work. I can't ask people to do things for me. And then throw in the expectations of society, who we have to be to be successful, how we're expected to do it. We have to work hard, that expectation that success is down to hard work. I grew up with the success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You've just got to work hard. The harder you work, the luckier you get. All of these adages is what I grew up with, which all tell us that, we have to work hard to be successful. We have to be successful to be valid in the world. And so we kind of fall into this space where we're creating the life that we think is expected of us to create. And then one day we wake up having created that life and then look around and go, well, hang on a second, it's not bringing me the joy I thought it would. It's not bringing me the fulfillment. I had one of my clients say, which is quite a common thing to say for me to hear actually, which is, I have everything I wanted, but I'm still not happy. Why am I not happy? And then be like, where do I go from here? I thought I knew what I wanted. I've created it. And now I have the career, I have the success of my career, I maybe even have the family, I have the children, the partner, I have the toys, I have the cars, I have the fancy holidays. And a lot of that is just the things that, we put into our cage to make it acceptable for us. We have our cage and our limitations, and then we go, well, this isn't great. So let me put a fancy house in there and some cars and some nice holidays and make it feel nice. But there's that tap, tap, tap that gets louder and louder as we get older. That's like, is there more than this? Is this really what I want? Where am I in all of this? Where's my joy? Where's my meaning? And different things can, touch people at different times, different ages, to relook at their lives and go, is this what I want?
I want to go in your story in a minute, but before that, when you were speaking, I was thinking, this is nice to hear when I have my own business, but when I'm in a job and I have a boss and I have a job description, how exactly do I create a life I want in that situation, Ellen?
Well, I can talk about that with a little bit of my story because, when I first started, learning and working with these premises, like I was very much in my cage at work. I was working a corporate job. I was a senior leader, and I thought that all of the things I was doing, I had to do. And as I started realizing it, my to-do list was a lot of things that were coming from my cage. There were things I thought I needed to do. I was over delivering on things because I was like, well, what if that is not enough? I was going above and beyond. I was saying yes to things I could say no to. I was getting involved with things I really didn't need to be in. And one day I was sat on a call with America at like 7 p.m. in the evening, UK time. And that call was going to stretch on for another few hours. And I realized I don't actually need to be here. It's my ego, my cage, as I came to call it, that's telling me like, oh, you better be there. What if you're not there? You won't be seen as valued. You need to be showing up. You need to be seen. You need to. And I sat there and went, but, am I actually adding any value on this call? Is it actually serving me in creating what I want to create at my work and at my life? Or am I just here to prove myself? Am I here to protect myself? And I realized that in each moment, we're either trying to prove or protect ourselves, or we're serving the vision of what we're looking to create. And that's true in our work life as it's true in, our home life. And I realized in that moment, I was just there to prove myself. It wasn't serving my end results at work. It wasn't serving the end results of my life. And so I just asked myself, what would I really love to do instead? And it was, go home and paint. I'm not a great artist, but I do love that feeling of paint on my hands and, glue and things. And I went home and I spent the next few hours like with paper and glue and paint and just having a whale of a time. And I started to do that more and more. I started to realize all of the things I was doing at work that actually I didn't need to do. I was doing them to prove and protect myself rather than to serve what I wanted to create. And so I started having this exactly the same, if not better, success at work. I built better relationships. I had better results on projects. And yeah, I wasn't putting the same hours in. I had a lot more time to do the things that brought me joy. And so I realized that, stepping out and coming from this, more intuitive space, more spirit-led space, was actually as successful
Mm.
And yet I had a lot more time. And that's really what shifted for me, which is, part of the start of my story, because people started seeing the difference and
Mm.
asking me, like, what are you doing? Like, you used to be burnt out and workaholic and never stop working. And now, like, everything's going really well for you. And yet you're not working the same. Like, what are you doing? And I started sharing what I was doing with people and these insights and the shifts I was having. And that's what led me eventually to leaving corporate and starting my own business, working with people to do it for themselves.
Wow. Let's see if I really pick what you said. So you said there is this place of do, 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 go, 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 proof, 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 more, 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 more. Do more things. Maybe, do more and do more and do more and do more, and then you'll be worthy. Finally, you'll be worthy. Finally, you'll be accepted. Finally, you will be proof. I don't know, you prove yourself useful. Finally, there is something, an identity, a rank, something that comes up. But you also said, I stepped into my intuition and I started doing things that I loved, things that I got joy from, things that gave me meaning, things that gave me the other stuff that we don't think about. So if I was in the go, 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 do, do, do type of scenario right now, and I was thinking, wait, what? Intuition led? What? Creating from joy, creating from a place I love, from flow, no burnout, no. Okay. How do I do that? If I was this VP or CEO that was making all the money, having all the success, but like really, when I look down, I'm like, this is really not the view that I wanted. I have the toys, I have the cars, I have the wife, I have the kids, I have whatever the thing that I wanted to have, but something just doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I've arrived. I don't feel like this is quite the game I wanted to play. I was playing this game, I had this thing in mind, but now that I am at the top, I don't know that this is it. It doesn't feel quite like it. Walk me through, how can I shift that or move around that or change that? Assuming it's not too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late. The first thing I start with people is really like becoming more aware. I call it unlocking the cage. Yeah, becoming
Mm,
aware of like how we've got into the place that we're in. Acknowledging that we are powerful creators of our own life and that we have created this life for ourselves, and therefore we can create anything we want. And this recognition that a lot of the thoughts and feelings we have about what we need to do
mm,
come actually from our underlying stories, the things that we bought into as children, the meaning we placed on messages and experiences we had as children, because we essentially created the cage for ourselves.
mm,
And that understanding can help us shift things. The realization that actually, I think I need to do this, but just because I think it doesn't make it true.
mm,
We have a society where we're all asking people like, what do you think about that? How do you feel about that? And the question is really needs to be a different question, which is it true?
mm,
Because our thoughts and feelings, they feel real to us, but they're not objective reality. They come from our beliefs, our assumptions, our definitions about things in life. And there are conscious, but there's a lot of unconscious. And Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it directs your life and you call it fate. So I tend to work with people who are ready to acknowledge, okay, I've created this. I've had a bunch of stories, a bunch of thoughts, and I've created this life for myself, that actually there is a different way. And so it's kind of stripping that away, coming back home to the truth of yourself and what you love, and starting to give that more time and energy, and noticing the thoughts and feelings that come in. So a lot of people, when I start working, they'll go, but I don't know what I love. We've spent so much time like building our life from our cage, and building a very beautiful cage, that we feel we've lost sight of what we love.
mm,
And it's kind of just taking that time to recognize that, to own that, and to come back into ourselves, which we can do in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it's just remember looking at what brings you joy in your life, and just coming back to that place, and giving it some space and some energy, and recognizing the thoughts and feelings that come in. One of the definitions of intuition I love is intuition is the first thing that your mind apprehends before your rational mind kicks it away. And so noticing that kind of like, I've always had one of my clients wanted to open an art gallery, and it was just this a tiny little thing, right? This whisper of the heart, I think Steven Spielberg calls it, this tiny little thing. I'd love one day to have an art gallery, but in his mind it was like, but I can't do that until I've retired, until I have enough money, until I've left my corporate job. And so what I help people do is go, well, no, just put that and let go of those assumptions, let go of the conditions, let go of those expectations and any guilt that's around that, and just be in the energy of what you'd love to create and choose that for yourself, and then notice what's obvious. And within 6 months, he'd actually opened an art gallery. So it's being open to how things are going to happen is not the way that you think they're going to happen. And there's a lot of magic out there, and letting go of, it has to be. Now I had a client who, she's like, I'd really love to take my family and my dad on a cruise to Alaska in like 5 years. And it's interesting because a lot of people either say retirement or 5 years. And I think it's because 5 years feels like it's far enough away that I don't need to do anything about it now, but it's close enough that I think one day it's possible. And they're like, in 5 years, I want to do this. And I said, well, forget the timeline, just choose that you want to do that one day. And a couple of weeks later she was sat with a colleague at work, and he said, oh yeah, my wife, she organizes cruises to Alaska. And 6 weeks later she was on this cruise to Alaska with her dad and their family, and it was even more poignant because he passed away a year later. And so she waited the 5 years. She'd never got to do that because she had in her head, I can't do that until I've done these other things. And we're like, well, just forget all of that and just choose instead what is really going to bring you joy. And miraculous things start to happen. I call it magic because there's no other way to think about it really, but magic happens and people go, oh, you're so lucky. And you're like, no, I had this energy and I chose it, and things fell into place for me.
So this is what I'm picking up. We have a lot of have to, needs to, must do. I have really to do that thing. I need to do that thing. I must do that thing. And I will create this thing when this condition is fulfilled. I will create my gardening project when I leave my job. I will be happy when I have the third kid. I will move to this place when condition. And you're saying all that stuff is made up. But as I hear what you're saying, every second I'm picking up like the need to connect to the intuition. And my question is, can you tell us more about, because this is my experience and a lot of people, the experience that I have seen they have is you grow up, you have this intuition when you're a baby, strong like nothing. You believe you can shake the world. And then you begin to grow up and what we call reality kicks in. And it's not really like you no longer can move a mountain. And your parents tell you you no longer can say what you want. And your teacher says you no longer can do that because that's rude. And who knows, whatever. All these people who are older than you start to tell you what you can and can't do based on their conditioning, based on whatever. And then as you grow up, subconsciously you begin to kind of pick up these things and you begin to believe these things. And by the time you're 30 or 40, your dream of I can move a mountain is like, man, I don't know. You marry the wrong person and then you get divorced and then who knows, you lose your job and I don't know. A lot of things happen that keep affirming to you that, maybe you're not unstoppable, And what you're saying, if I'm picking it right, this is a place to connect back to that part of you which believed it can move the mountain. Because in as much as we want to believe what you're saying, it's like it's not goodwill. It's like we have something else that is driving the show. People may want to be healthy and eat well and lose weight, but the cookies just end up in the mouth. So can you walk me through, and some people don't even trust their first instinct because of the proof, which is called the reality of what has happened for them. So can you help me understand what we need to do to go back to that instinct, and maybe what we need to do to help goodwill, because it's not like we don't want to leave the job. We actually want, but we can't. Like, it's like we're stuck. So, can you help me understand what is available when the goodwill that I have is not working? I want to be a better mom, but I scream at my kids. It's like subconscious, it's like autopilot, it's like default. It's like we
Yeah.
are living on some kind of program that is just default. So, one, how do I maybe work with that? How do I help that thing? Then, two, how do I get back to trusting my instincts and just going with the first thought that comes to mind? Because that thought is often in disagreement with my reality.
So there's a few things to actually kind of pass apart there.
Mm.
One is that we will never trust intuition until we have the experience. Because what we do is, we look, like you said, we look at the reality, but if we can at least accept or be prepared to accept, to flirt with, if you like, the idea that we've created that reality. So all of the time we are looking for evidence that supports our viewpoint of life. So if we believe that we are incapable of something, we will keep proving to ourselves that we're incapable of something. So if we can at least flirt with the idea that just because that evidence is there doesn't mean that that has to be our future reality, that maybe we could step apart from that for a second, is one thing. And the other thing is, if we set up a condition, I need to trust my intuition before I follow it, then we spend our life trying to trust our intuition. What happens is, if you follow it, you will learn to trust your intuition. So there is a leap of faith that's involved, because otherwise that's another condition. I was talking about the conditions of cage. When I trust my intuition, I'll follow it. And so the energy is going into the wrong place. Our focus is in the wrong place. The way that we can step out of the cage, if you like, is to acknowledge it, to spot it and to honor it, to not make it wrong. It's there to keep us safe, right? So I work with people on a framework that I call SHIFT, which stands for spot it and honor it, is the S and the H. And the spotting it and the honor it, stands for shush. So it's like you're shushing the cage, you're turning down that volume of thoughts and feelings by acknowledging them as a story rather than reality. Because in the example of shouting at your kids, you take a moment to spot, hey, I've got this charge, I'm in this emotional state, what I want to do is scream at my kids. When you can take a pause then and go, what am I making this mean about me? Because when we have an emotional reaction like that, it's because we're taking it personally in some way. And what we're doing is we're reacting to the thing that we're taking personally. We're reacting to the story. And when we can go, hey, what is the story that I'm running here? And it might be deep down, people start at the conscious going, the kids are misbehaving. But when you look down underneath, it'll be, the kids are misbehaving because I'm not a good mother. And so what we're reacting to is the fear that we're not a good mother. And we're being defensive because of the fear that we're not a good mother. And that's why we shout. So it's not what we think is going on, it's not what's going on. So it comes back to Carl Jung making that unconscious conscious. You can look at it and go, okay, I have a story that I'm not a good mother, which is why I want to respond in this way. But if I go, actually, that story, just because I have that story doesn't make it true. And I can take that story and I can put it back on my bookshelf. And rather than opening that story and reading it and getting into the emotion of not being a good mother, I can just take that story, I can close it, I can put it on the shelf. I go, just because I think it doesn't make it true. So the eye, as we step into a space of innocence through imagination, where we're letting go of our thoughts and feelings, and then we can focus on what we really love. So we can take a moment to focus and go, okay, well, what I really love, I'd love an amazing relationship with my children. And then you go, well, what's my insight from that space, from that energy? And the T is we take that insight, and it might be, well, let me sit down with my kids and go, like, what's going on here? You're not putting your shoes on. Like, you're worried about going to school today? Oh, well, let's talk about that, rather. So we're responding to the situation from our higher self, from our spirit-led self, rather than from the lower vibration of our fears and our doubts about ourselves as a mother. Yeah. And I call it ABC. The A stands for awareness, just being aware of our thoughts and feelings. We can become aware of our body, we can aware of the tension, the charge that's coming up for us. And then the B stands for just take a moment to breathe, to become present, to come back into ourselves. Because when we're in that het up state, we're very much in our heads, we're projecting out, to kind of bring that in, come back into ourselves. And then the C stands for just connecting with what you love.
Mm.
And in the energy, the emotion of what you would truly love, go, okay, what's true for me here? What's obvious for me here? And
Oh,
continue to do that over and over and over again. And in doing that, we get more and more connected to that place within. We get more and more connected to our joy, more and more connected to our spirit, more and more connected to our intuition.
what I pick up is something like this. You have stories, unconscious, subconscious, that come up every time you feel the trigger or resistance to do the thing that you want. And what you're saying is open the story and kind of realize it's a story, close it, and put it on a shelf. And when you say that, I think about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is this different from therapy? Is it just because I'm aware of the story and I've put it somewhere, it goes away? Or, like, how do I ban the story? How do I throw the story away? And there's some days when I'll creep back in the shelf and pick the story. Like, how does this work? Considering I'm even unaware of this, but now you're saying, you know what, close the book and let's put the book here and let it gather dust. But, like, is that enough? I feel like that's like therapy. And I know I'm going off a target, but, like, help us understand how this is not therapy.
So I think there are some aspects which might be aligned, and it depends on the type of therapy, right?
Mm.
So it depends whether you feel that in order to move on, you really need to open the book and read it and understand it and do stuff with it, or whether you could just go, oh, yeah, that's my old story. I'm putting it back on the shelf and I'm continuing onwards. There's a lot in the self-development of, like, we need to fix ourselves, we need to heal, we need to what's the word, shift our beliefs. I need to believe I can do this. And the challenge with that, sometimes that sets up conditions. Oh, I can have what I love when I've got rid of my procrastination, and when I aren't resistant anymore, and when I when I don't believe the story anymore. And the truth is, we don't have to believe, we just have to act as if we believe. When we put the story on the shelf and we go, okay, what would I really love and what's my next step with that, we can follow through on that next step. And you know what, that book is going to fall off the shelf again, and it's going to fall off the shelf again, and it's going to fall off the shelf again. And it's just a case of putting it back on the shelf. There are times when therapy and talking about things, healing things, looking at things can really serve us to understand and reframe that story. So when it falls off the shelf, instead of seeing it as a biography, we see it as a fairy tale. Yeah.
Mm.
And therapy can be supportive of that. There's exercises I do with people that can be supportive of that. There's body work you can do that can be supportive of that. We just don't want to set it up as a condition that is necessary in order to move forwards. There are times when I've worked with myself or I've worked with clients, and the next step to move forward might be, do some healing on this, do some Reiki, do acupuncture, do shamanic healing, do cognitive behavioral therapy, do IFS, do this type of therapy, do myofascial release. There are so many different things we can do that can help us, like, ameliorate the energy of that story. The danger is when we think we have to do something before we can move forward. And a lot of the self-development modalities are people who something worked for them, and then they're like, everybody has to do this, and until you've done this, you can't move forward. And one of the things I've always loved with the intuition is to go, there's no right way of doing anything. For some people, you can just go, oh yeah, that old story, stick it on the shelf and keep going. And you can do that 20 times a day and that's fine. For some people, intuitively they get, I want to look at this in a certain way. And certainly for me, for some, trauma incidents I've had in my life, when I looked at it intuitively, I got to do shamanic healing. I've got to do therapy. I've got to do different things. And this is why I say it's about the type of therapy and what works for each individual. I think what doesn't work well in my experience is any type of work where you pull the book down from the shelf and you read it and you get in it, and it's almost like you're expanding the energy and the power in that story because you've repeated it so many times as if it's true. I think what is important is when you look at that story to go, okay, it's just a story. I created it through an experience that I had and the meaning I put on it. And that actually I don't have to live out that story anymore. I can just put it away.
Let me try and split this, what I'm learning from you, and then you can tell me if it's off or if it's kind of right, or if I'm getting it. Like, is this kind of the truth? I'm in a job I hate, and it's underpaying me, or I'm just done climbing the ladders. I really know that, even though I've done all these things. Yeah, but I don't want to see the next step if it's there. I've climbed enough ladders, and looking down, I don't like what I see, and I'm not sure if I want the next ladder. That's where I am. The story in my head might be, well, for you to be respected in community, in your family, in wherever, you gotta have a job. I mean, if you don't have a job, then I don't know, you're jobless, you're irresponsible, you're whatever the thing is. And you're going, but hold on, like, well, is this true? Like, if I don't have a job today, if I wasn't a CEO, a CTO, Mrs. So-and-so, like, would that be true for me that I am not successful, I'm not worthy, I'm whatever? And then you decide, well, my new story is that I will do the thing that brings me joy instead of, maybe I won't go for the career that gives me the most money, but I will go for the career that gives me the most joy. And then you're going, now with this realization, you're choosing to reframe the story, and you're taking away the power from the story. So that story no longer holds you hosted. You can change your job as you see fit. You can also leave the job and do your own stuff. You can also just go and start painting today. You can do whatever you want because you have reframed like what that story means. And I want you to kind of tell me if this is what it is. Because having a different story about why you do what you do, creating a different story, a new meaning, will allow you to take a different action, which then will give you the result that you ultimately want, but unconsciously self-sabotage from because of the story behind it. Is this what you were saying, or do we need to kind of do you need to reiterate it?
No, I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. And it's not, though, that we have to. The important thing is we recognize that it's just a story. And because we think it doesn't make it true. And that's the thing that unlocks the cage.
I have a story for that. So my husband is ADHD. And because he's ADHD, it's very easy for him to get very stressed. And when he's stressed, he's not exactly helpful. He's not helping me solve whatever the problem is. And when we just got married first, I used to take this stress and make it mean something. Doesn't probably, I don't know, I used to probably think, doesn't really care what I have to say here. He doesn't really take a minute to understand what I'm saying. He doesn't really take, like, I used to want to force him to kind of focus on one thing. But then I realized he has an ADHD brain. He does a million things at once. So if we're having a conversation and he's scrolling his phone, it's his way of getting focused. I said, this doesn't mean anything. It just means he has an ADHD brain, and his lack of focus has nothing to do with anything. And now the same situations can happen, but I'm like, ADHD, And now it's
Exactly.
liberating. Now you don't have to care that he's scrolling his phone because it doesn't mean anything. He's just trying to focus, if anything.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's kind of, I think it's kind of the same thing. When you have the awareness of the subconscious program or story, then you can choose that this story is no longer true for you.
Yeah. And I think you raise a really important point there about the meaning, because
Mm.
that's what we do as humans. Humans are meaning making machines, right? We feel like we are safe when we're orientated and we know. So we have this huge
Mm.
need to know. And a lot of stepping intuition and being more spirit led is letting go of the need to know.
Mm.
Because, to use your example, you're looking at the behavior of your husband going, what does this mean? Well, it must mean something about me. That's the taking it personally bit. And because we have fears about ourselves, we might look at it and go, he's doing that because I'm not enough.
Mm.
Because we deep down have a fear that we're not enough. And so we're not looking at it going, oh, that's curious. He's distracted. We go, there's a meaning behind that. And the meaning is I'm not enough, because that's my deepest fear about myself. And now I'm reacting to, you need to focus, because that would prove to me that you care, and that would prove to me that I'm enough. Whereas when we can
Mm.
look at that and go, okay, what am I making his behavior mean about me? Like this reaction I'm having, what am I making it mean about me? Okay, so now I have the understanding it's a story, and I understand it's ADHD, and that's great, because that helps us go, oh, it's nothing, it's not me. And that again takes the charge away. And we can also do that without having the paradigm shift about the other person, by just going, what am I making, like the kids I was saying, what is their behavior? What does it mean about me? What am I making it mean about me?
Mm.
I'm making it mean that I'm a bad parent. I'm making it mean, what does that mean? Oh, because I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I don't belong, or I'm powerless, or I'm not capable, all of the deep seated beliefs that we have. And, for me, my most deep seated belief is I'm not good enough. And so that's the answer to any question, any situation out in the world. Why did somebody do that? Well, because you're not good enough. Why didn't he call you back after that date? Because you're not good enough. So what do you need to do? You need to be good enough. Well, what does that mean? You have to work hard. You have to be successful. You have to talk about how impressive you are. Well, since when has it worked on a date to talk about how impressive you are? So you go on another date and you talk about even more about how impressive you are, because that's what you have to do to be good enough. And they don't call you back, and you go, why didn't they call me back? Because I'm not good enough. I must need to talk even more about how impressive I am, right? And that's the cycle we get into. So we end up, our fears, our doubts about ourselves end up driving our behavior that creates the very thing that we were afraid of. And this is how we prove those beliefs, those stories to ourselves over and over and over. And when we can break that cycle by going, I'm just taking that person's behavior, I'm making it mean something about me. I'm
Mm.
making it mean something about me that's a fear about myself that isn't real. It's not true. Um, it feels real, but it isn't true. And it just comes from something that happened when I was a child, you know? And, for me, a lot of growing up as a child, I got a lot of praise when I was good at school. And so as a child, you go, oh, maybe my parents wouldn't love me if I wasn't doing well at school, which
Wow.
is not true at all, you know? And yet we don't know that because we're kids. And so we put all of these stories together, and then we put meaning on it. And so that question, what am I making this mean, can be a very powerful question, because then we can look at it and go, what else could it mean?
Mm.
It could mean that his ADHD is going, it could mean that the kids have just had a lot of sugar this morning. It could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean, and maybe none of those things are true either, because the truth is we never really know, you know
Um,
we've got something like 400 billion bits of information coming at us in every second, and we filter those to 2,000 bits of information through our reticular activating system. It's why when you buy a new car, you suddenly see it everywhere, because you've reset your reticular activating system. But we can reset our reticular activating system based on our cage, based on
mm.
what we think is going to keep us safe. So all we see
Is
is
that?
is things that support the story. So if we have a story, we're not good at public speaking, we stand up on stage in front of 100 people, 99 of them Can be like, oh my God, that was amazing. One person can sit there with their arms folded and we go, look, all you can see is that one person. And you make that mean that you're not good at public speaking to prove, because that we filter down that information. And the truth is, we never know what's really going on because we're filtering, 400 billion bits of information to 2,000. I mean, you think about, we're missing 399 plus billion bits of information. We never know what's going on. So when we can realize that we never know what's going on, we don't know the truth of it, and we can let go and realize those stories are just made up, it helps us to step away from that and go, okay, but what is it that I would love, and act based on that rather than trying to prove and protect ourselves.
Whew, that was a lot. That's like you can live in a cage all your life and not
Yes.
even know it. You can know, like you can be in a little cage and you can run around till one day you're in the grave.
Yeah.
Or you can free yourself up. Is there anything about the work you do that if we didn't touch today, this conversation would be incomplete? I feel
Yeah.
like we've given people some good stuff.
So
So,
I would say to remember that there's nothing about you that needs fixing.
mm,
Like, you have everything within you already to create a life of joy and meaning. And there's a lot of messages out there about how we need to fix ourselves before we can. And the
mm,
truth is, you have your spirit needs no self-development. You have
mm.
everything you need within you. You can become your own guru. And so remember that every part of you is valid in the world. There's nothing about you that needs fixing.
That was really some good advice there. If you've created a life that you don't enjoy, if you're at the top of some ladder and you're going, yeah, I don't know if this is the view that I really wanted. If you're in a job that no longer serves you, if you're in a career that is not fulfilling for you, if you find yourself stuck to the hustle grind, you're overwhelmed and you're exhausted and you're just like, is there more to life? Like, is there any part of the day when I can just, disconnect and really feel good about everything that I'm creating? If you have any of those questions, if any of the things we've talked about got you going, wow, that's me, or I wish I could get that resolved, or I wish I could really get those programs, to the front so I can see them. Whatever it is that, spoke with you, I'd like to invite you to kind of tune in and kind of see what was it for you? What did you pick off of that? Is there anyone that you know that needs to hear this message? Feel free to share the link with them and invite them into the conversation. That was us. That was today's conversation. That was Ellen Kumba. That was really the message, how to create the life that you desire. Ellen, what is the best place for the listener to connect with you?
Well, they can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. I think the links will be in the show notes. And if you are in a place of burnout, I have a guide to understand a little bit more about that, which you can get at beatingburnout.today. It's a simple link to remember to just get connected and understand maybe how you're creating that life, what aspects of your cage are creating that life that you're feeling stuck in.
Take a minute, follow Ellen, Ellen. Kumba is Coomber on socials. And in the show notes, we'll put a guide that she's created about burnout. I think that's a very good one. Grab it and see how you can get started with your own journey of freeing yourself from whatever the jail sentence you find yourself in. Sending you all my love. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Appreciate you coming back to this channel from time to time. If you haven't subscribed already, please pause and become one of the 5% of the people who actually subscribe to the channel after watching a video, and keep coming back for more, because this channel is all about stepping into your best version so you can do the things that you're here to do in the world. Okay, that's it. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.